Hello,
Hello,
welcome to the third episode of InterArts Talks. My name is Karolina.
and I'm Aleksandra.
We are founders of InterArts organization that creates and organizes events oscillating around the idea of sustainability, cruelty-free, and conscious fashion. Today, we'll talk with Mawra Mahmood, a self-taught designer from Oslo.
And I would like to mention that Mawra was also one of the fashion designers who presented her sustainable collection at the Supernatural Oslo Fashion Show 2019. Hello once again, Mawra, and thank you for being with us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you guys again.
See you, unfortunately online, but yeah, anyway, it's good.
Yeah, better than nothing.
Mawra, our first question. When we look at your previous collections, we can see that you create evening wear and target mostly women. What led you to make these choices?
When I started designing and thinking of starting a brand, doing it professionally, it wasn't only to provide a specific style and like a feel of garments out there, but also primarily to fill a gap in the Norwegian market for evening wears. And my target group was women because those are the clothes that I knew. And I like to design them from a practical point of view. I know how the female body looks and is, and the proportions, and how to kind of build a garment around those proportions. So that was why I chose women. I know when it comes to evening wear, especially being a woman who wears a headscarf and who covers herself, it's very hard to find evening wear that is covered. So that's the reason I decided to focus on that, because you would very rarely find something that doesn't, when it comes to evening wear, that doesn't have a slit or it doesn't have a long cleavage or see-through. So it was first and foremost due to a lack of that choice in the market that I decided to do it the way I did.
All right, so you grew up in Norway, but you come from Pakistani family. And we are wondering, how do you merge these two cultures in your work? And also we are wondering, because as we said, you make mostly women clothing, covered ones. So does it mean that most of your customers are Muslim women?
No, not at all. And that's the reason that I very deliberately, I don't call it modest wear either, because modest wear is very often looked at as synonymous with clothes for Muslim women. So I don't call it that. I call it covered wear because it describes the evening wear very easily. And most of my customers have actually been non-Muslim because some women actually enjoy that part as well of evening wear, and they're comfortable with wearing clothes that are more covered than what they can find out in the market as well. But when it comes to my background, I actually, when it comes to these cultures, I don't actually merge these two cultures that much. I've only done it on one garment very consciously. That was actually one of the garments in the collection that I showcased on the Inter Art fashion show that was in 2018. Other than that, I don't really feel that my style or fashion sense is very much influenced by my Pakistani roots. There might be that I have some unconscious patterns or designs that might resemble the Pakistani culture and feel, but I don't kind of have that as a starting point for what I do. But regardless of that, I do always think that being a third culture kid, it does make me able to have that subconscious advantage in being able to think broader and bigger and having the choice of bringing that in if I want to, and kind of include that more in my starting point when I am picturing things and working with my creativity. Yeah, so it's not like a big part of my influence. And I think a lot of people also think that because I look the way I do, that she must be influenced by her roots. And I think a part of me probably would have wished that I was, because I know that there's a lot of beautiful Pakistani clothes and there's a lot of traditions that are beautiful. But I feel like if there are already so many amazing designers out there who are doing this, why would I do the same? Because if they're already filling that kind of space in the market, then I'd only kind of contribute more to pollution by being just another one who's doing the same as someone else, just because I want to put my name to it or whatever it may be. So I don't feel like my sense of cultural design would be unique enough to kind of give it its own little place in the world, if I could say it like that.
But if you, when you said about Pakistani designers, I just recalled a dinner with my Pakistani friends. They came to visit me and my fiance, and they brought something like some gift from Pakistan for us, and I got like a really beautiful, like kind of well, it's not a scarf, it's not a blanket, but something that you just
it's called chadar.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
How does it call?
It's called chadar. So it's written Chaddar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Name, but I completely forgot, unfortunately. But it's so beautiful, and it's handwork.
Yeah.
It's like wow. And my friend showed me. She said like every time when she goes to Pakistan, she wears these dresses and she puts this thing on her arm. It looks amazing. I can't wait to wear it one day.
No, they're very beautiful, and like you said, the handwork on these pieces, they're amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So much work, right?
Yeah, a lot of work is put into it. So much work, and often, just like here in Norway, how they have the bunad, and you have different bunad dresses from different counties. And it's the same in Pakistan, that you have different kind of styles of embroidery from different places in the country. So you can see like which part of the country is this pattern from on this chadar, and then you would know what village comes from, stuff like that. So it's very unique.
Mawra, let's get back to our questions. We are wondering, what's your relation with sustainable fashion? You were one of our fashion designers at Supernatural Oslo Fashion Show 2019. And what's your relation with sustainable fashion? Did you have any experience before fashion show
and after?
Yeah, when I've been kind of diving into all of this, was starting my own brand and making clothes and stuff, then I did want to do everything sustainable. So when I was doing all of this, I was simultaneously doing research, trying to find out like, how is the clothing industry? How's the textile production happening? How do people who want to do it in a sustainable manner, how are they doing it? And I came to find that the clothing industry is very polluting. It's such a harmful sector. And when I was doing this research, I was constantly thinking about having that focus of sustainability in my designs and my production and my business, in the way that I did my business. And in the world that we live in today, with the development that we've seen the last centuries, I think if you would start a brand now, and you wouldn't have a sustainable focus, then you really don't have anything to give to the market, because it's just it is such a harmful industry, and it is also very difficult to be a sustainable brand. I know that it is possible. A lot of people have done it, but it is difficult. And I think we see it even more when we see that the biggest brands that we do have in the world, they're not necessarily the most sustainable choices. So I've deliberately looked at how my brand can be sustainable, which for me did mean a lot of compromise on creativity and production, because of that I didn't outsource my production, and I've occasionally decided not to use certain materials, which makes so you do have to compromise on the fact that you might not get that stiff garment look that you want, because then you would need a textile like this and that, and then so you kind of you don't get that big broad choice of material that you can use. But in general, also as a consumer, I'm very much alert now about where the clothes are made, how they're made, and what they're made of. So I really do think, like, when I did start out this, I did have that in the back of my head all the time. And it has been difficult, especially when you're a startup as well and you're not getting any funding from anywhere. And my starting point, I don't have any education within fashion. I'm an economist, so I had a completely different starting point as well. But yeah, I did have that focus, and it's important to have that relationship to being sustainable in whatever you do, be it fashion or be it, starting a dentist office.
Exactly, not only in the fashion field. And you have already touched this topic, but we would like to go a little bit deeper. In your opinion, what are the main problems you see in the fashion sector today?
I would definitely say it is greenwashing. That is definitely one of the problems. And I even feel like calling it greenwashing sounds like a nice word. It is actually lying about your product. That is actually what it is. I think that's a big problem. And also another problem is the lack of will to detach from the classic way of producing clothes and textiles. When talking about moving towards a sustainable trend, a lot of brands, they still use the same prerequisites to do so. So I think the fashion sector really needs to disrupt themselves a bit more, to do like a full 360. And a lot of times, like sometimes when I've been in panel discussions and stuff, and we've been talking about that, why can't H&M, for example, with their production facilities and the way that they produce, why can't they just shut down everything and then turn everything over to more ethical production and stuff like that? And then the counterpart, or very often argument with that, well, what about all the people who work for them? What about the employment? It's gonna hit so many people and their day-to-day lives, and they need it. And then I think I totally get it, but if you would detach yourself from it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna leave everything in the open air. Because what you do need then is to find a new way of producing, a new way of working, a new way of extracting materials for textiles. So why not channel all of that knowledge towards that which you would need? So I do think it has a lot to do with the mindset as well, that we're so stuck in the classic way of using chemicals when we're coloring clothes, and always thinking about producing as much as possible to get the cost per garment down, so you again can sell it cheaper and then consumers will buy more of it. I think it has a lot to do with mindset as well. Yeah. There's a lot of problems in this sector. Yeah. These are just like some of the few ones that I would touch upon. And another thing is definitely representation as well. When it comes to how we portray fashion, it's always portrayed on a beautiful thin body with someone who has a beautiful face with big eyes and skinny nose and big lips, and it's an illusion. And it's only now that we've started seeing diversity when it comes to models being used in fashion, but there's so much more when it comes to diversity that should also be really baked into everything that has to do with fashion. So yeah, there's a lot of things.
But do you think that it's changing? It's getting better, or?
I definitely think that we've started getting on that track now, because the voices that are kind of rooting for us to go in the right direction, they're not being scared, or they're not being put off by the power that these big brands do have, and these big players in the fashion industry have, which is great, because that is what is going to drive that change.
And fortunately, now we got much more information about the way of clothing production. Also, these uncomfortable topics of, for example, modern slavery and sustainability in fashion industry are not hidden anymore.
Yes, and like you said, this bunch of information which reaches us every day makes that we are much more aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are more aware because we have bigger access to this knowledge. Yeah.